I think I was an addict from the start, and the only thing that I really liked was opiates. I remember the first time I ever did them, it was like a light switch went off in my brain. I just suddenly got it. Whatever it was I was missing about life when I was on heroin, I was everything that I wasn't when I was normal. The odds of me dying weren't a possibility. It was guaranteed. Suboxone saved my life. Like, period. Suboxone saved my life.
What's up, everybody? Tonight's guest, Saskatoon rock band Truth and Agony lead singer and guitarist Lucien Broste is here to share his story and how he found a safer way with suboxone. And if you don't know who I am, watch this.
I spent 23 years living in addiction. 16 of those years, I worked as a Red Seal tradesperson. During that time, I made many mistakes and took more than a few hard knocks. I went from tradesman to business owner to hiding from gang members and dumpster diving. But with that lived experience, I've decided to try and make a change. So join me and my guests as we take off the blinders around mental health in our communities and at work, and shine a light on what's working and what's not working in the fields of mental health and substance use policy. I'm Daniel Unmanageable, and I'll be your host, and this is Hard Knocks Talks.
Tonight's episode is brought to you in part by Prairie Sky Recovery Centre and Stronger Together Canada, peer-led support groups by Moms Stop the Harm. Let's bring in Lucien. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? Been a while. How you been?
Yeah, I've been doing good. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started tonight?
Yeah. A lot of people are really wanting to make a change, and you're noticing a lot of people are reaching out for help. People are finding their voice kind of in the world now that we live in, and a lot of people are showing a lot of bravery and courage in doing that. And I highly commend those people for doing that, because the most important step of recovery is asking someone else for help, period.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, well, let's dive in.
Yep.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the backstory? Let's take 10, 15 minutes. Tell us a little about what it was like growing up.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Lucien Broste. I play in a rock band called Truth and Agony here in Saskatoon. I was adopted at birth, but I grew up in Saskatoon, nominally in Saskatoon. My family's from here, my brother and sister from here. I grew up in a good home with loving parents. My adoptive parents obviously treated me as one of their own, and I was always well loved, and I never wanted for anything. Politely middle class is how I would describe my upbringing. Very average for people in that kind of bracket. But I discovered kind of like drugs and like partying and like staying out late and just general misbehaving, fighting and stuff. I was young. I was 12, 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time in the 90s in Saskatoon, it seemed like if a kid was misbehaving or just was generally different from the average crowd of kids, the parents threw him in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone that I knew who was a teenager in the 1990s in Saskatoon, I knew them because they were involved in one form or another with the system. And that's how we knew. We all just kind of learned survival very young, like even though we all came from decent homes for the most part, like we still got fed to the wolves in the foster care system, because that system at the time didn't have the safeguards that are in place today. So a lot of kids kind of got stuck in the grinder and got caught in the cycle of poverty, mental illness, prison, addiction, and that sort of thing, which brought me into addiction. I think I sought out drugs because I was trying to replace something in me that in the end, I think I knew I couldn't replace, right? Like you have to deal with the pain. It never ever goes away, no matter how hard you use. And it's weird because you use to get away from the pain. And if anything, the using made me just zero in and dwell and burn and focus on the pain and the things that bothered me. It actually made things worse in the end. but it became familiar to me. It like the struggle, like waking up in the morning. Like I always used to joke when I was high that I could wake up with 20 million bucks in the bank, but I'm still going out to hustle dime bags because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And now that I'm clean, it really bothers me that that was the mentality that I was at. But that's where I was at in addiction. It was out of survival, right? Like I had never gone out of my way to hurt anyone. I'd never gone out of my way to be violent or to be aggressive. I sold drugs and, you know, like I shoplifted and stuff like that. Just small things. Like I was never what I would call an organized criminal, you know, like I ended up going to well, for starters, I was trying drugs out. Like I'd started small, weed, psychedelics like acid, mushrooms, and stuff like that. And cocaine.
So was there drinking and stuff at home, like growing up, or
no.
And what were you running from? Like, did you know at the time? I mean, you were feeling this hurt and stuff. Like, what?
Yeah,
what was it?
Like, I think being adopted really wounded me, and it shouldn't have. Now that I'm an adult, if I was to be told yesterday that I was adopted, I would react much differently than I was when I was 11 or 12 when I was told, right? My mother always told me as soon as I was old enough to understand what it was, she was honest and let me know. And I met my biological mother, who's a very nice lady who lives here in Saskatchewan, but like we just don't have that connection because she's not my mother. Like Suzanne Bobian, the woman who raised me, is my mother. Yeah. But like we get along fine, you know. But I think it threw me for a curveball because I was kind of like having an identity crisis. So I just started running. I went hitchhiking for my first time. I was 15 years old. I had never ever. I didn't even know what it was when I first got offered to go. So I went, and we went to Calgary, and you know what? I had the time of my life, and I never forgot that. And it always became like this kind of go-to thing where if the going got rough, I could always pack a bag, be gone in 10 minutes, and I could be in a different city in 6 hours, no problem. Where I had a whole new set of problems with new people waiting for me, but I would always
still the same old problems too. Yeah.
You kind of stay ahead of the fire, but you're still going to burn in the end. You know what I mean? But as long as you're moving, you're not going down in flames because you're moving, right? But after 20 years of this, like I needed to settle down. So I went to Vancouver. I was 18. I was 17 turning 18. I aged out of the foster care system. So I went out to Vancouver and I became a father at 19. And I was completely and unequivocally too immature to have a child. Like in no way, shape, or form should I have been having a child, like at all. Yeah. And to this day, I credit her mother, my daughter, Araya, I credit her mother, Paulette, for raising her, because if it was just me, like I couldn't even imagine what would have happened. I was in no shape, or like I was still a child myself, and I had no business having a kid. But fortunately, she turned into a very lovely young lady, and she's actually a mother herself now of my 9-month-old granddaughter Athena, who we love to death. But I went out to Vancouver and I tried heroin for my first time. Yeah. I'd never really thought about it before, but like,
were you scared to try it, or were you like you couldn't wait?
Well, okay, you know? Like I remember this was in the 90s, and like Nirvana was huge, and Kurt Cobain and Alice in Chains, and they were all doing heroin, so you wanted to be like them, so you figured you'd try it. What's the harm? I always assumed that you had to inject it to get high. And when I got to Vancouver, I learned that you didn't have to do that. So I was all in, because as long as I wasn't injecting, then it's all good, right? I'm not a junkie.
Right. You don't have a problem. Yeah.
No. So a week later, after smoking this shit on tinfoil nonstop, now I am now a junkie and sick. And that started my life of in and out of jail. And
how was your first time being dope sick?
Oh God.
So did you see it coming? Did you know? Did anyone tell you?
Absolutely not. When I started using, I actually started using, like I was living with the brother of my daughter's mother, like her uncle. We were living together, and we had like our own kind of set of friends outside of the ones that we knew with her, because she lived with her mom, but she was pregnant at the time. So I would hang out with people that I had met in Surrey outside of both of those circles of friends who no one knew that I knew them. So I could go to this trap house and I could get high for all day for, you know, $50 or whatever, and I could smoke all the heroin I fucking wanted, right? Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
And after, I think it was about 12 days or something, it was almost 2 weeks. I remember going over there and I had $100. I'd fucking grinded all day for this money. I was so happy. And I got there and the place was boarded up with a sign on the window. I guess they had been raided. And yeah.
Well,
and
at least you didn't show up when that was happening.
No. So I didn't know anyone else. And these were the kinds of guys where as long as you had the money, you could pound on the door at 3 a.m. They're going to open the door. Like as long as when they open the peephole, you show them the money, they'll open the door for you.
Yeah.
That kind of place. So I didn't know what to do. And after 4 hours of like, because remember, this is 2001. Cell phones aren't big yet, right? So calling on the payphone and shit. After $2 of that, I couldn't afford to call anyone else. So I got introduced to this place called East Hastings Street for my first time. Because I had heard that there was an open air drug market there where you could buy heroin and shit like that, where you didn't have to know someone. They would sell to anyone. They're just corner boys. So I became pretty familiar with those guys, and I decided I tried to quit for my first time. I was about 20 years old. So in the this is that 20-year-old logic where it just makes sense to no one but you, and you know. I
still have that. I
decided to hitchhike from Vancouver to Saskatoon, dope sick, in the middle of fucking winter. And like I was literally like walking in beside the highway in bushes and squatting over and literally shitting, like, because I was so sick. Like I didn't know what to do. Like I had some sleeping pills, and we got to Hope. I remember I got to Hope, and I was underneath the train bridge in Hope. And they have like these air vents there that kind of link up to the factory beside the train, and it blows out hot air. So I literally stayed there for almost a week, being sick. And they had a shelter in town, and I would go there for food and stuff. But I ended up going back to Vancouver and getting off and on. Like I don't think I was ready to take getting clean seriously. You know what I mean? I didn't really want to quit. I was being forced to because I would lose something if I didn't, right? I didn't want to quit, and you're never going to quit unless you want to, right?
Yeah.
So I go along my life.
You spent like a good part of your life like going all over Canada and into the States on trains, like living the hobo life, right?
Yeah, I could have gone to school and like gotten a degree, and I could have gotten married and had the picket fence and a dog and 2 kids. Like I could have done that, you know. I'm sure I could have. But
I have a dog and 2 kids.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I know, but it suits you. It doesn't suit me. well, actually, it kind of does now, but back then.
Okay.
And I wanted to travel, and we would cross the border illegally because at the time you could do that. Like it was like literally a farm field. You just run across, and that was that. Like there wasn't even a fence or anything. It was just trees. So we went all over the United States, through the West Coast and through the South and stuff like that, and up in the East Coast. I didn't really go to the Midwest too much, but it was a really cool learning experience. And at the end of the day, I am incredibly glad that I got that chance to do that, because most people at that time were like going to university, and by the time they got out, they were $70,000 in debt and weren't guaranteed a job. Like it almost seemed like the smarter choice. Yeah, I had no money in the bank, but I'd lived a rich life and I wasn't bitter and jaded yet. Heroin did that to me.
Yeah. So you did some time. You got pinched, and you went in 2016, right? Or
2015. I went in summer of 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. What happened there?
So it was terrible. I never handled alcohol well. Like I've never really had a problem with alcohol. But whenever I drink to excess, I turn into a jerk and I'm combative. It's not good for anyone. So I very rarely drink, if at all. And I got in an argument with my girlfriend, and she had made a comment about me being adopted that I took serious offense to. And I had a cup full of whiskey, and I threw it at a wall, and it shattered and a piece cut her. And she had to get 14 stitches. And I'm actually lucky I didn't kill her. So I got charged with an aggravated assault. You know, I'm not proud of it, but I did my time like a man, and I don't have to feel ashamed about it at all. Like I did what I had to do. 2015, I went into PA Pen. And in 2016, that riot cracked off on in the center block. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
There was a few $1 million in damage. A bunch of guys got shot. A bunch of guys got stabbed. A guy got killed. Two guys got killed, I think. Like a bunch of people had to be treated for injuries. A bunch of guys got beaten. Just the entire jail was destroyed. Like, it was destroyed. So in 2017, after spending a whole bunch of time in solitary confinement, because there was nowhere to put us, literally every cell in the jail was destroyed. You couldn't live in them. All the plumbing was ripped out of the walls. Like, there was holes in the walls. Like, it was inhabitable.
Think about this, Randy. You gotta wonder how people with their bare hands, like inmates, like they don't pack a lot of heat. You know what I mean? How can they rip plumbing out and smash holes in concrete walls and shit?
Yeah. So what happened during the riot was guys were getting their bunks, which are steel bunks, off the wall, and they were literally using those as rams and chipping holes and stuff like that. Like, and remember, the PA Penn's a 115-year-old jail. It's not the strongest joint to begin with, right? But there was just so much damage and so much chaos. And I literally believe I was diagnosed with PTSD after it when I got out. I had such high anxiety. My blood pressure was through the roof. I was on 3 different kinds of medication. And I started using again. It was 2018. I got out on my stat after 40 months in the pen, and
away. You just went again. Like right away.
Well, yeah, pretty close. Yeah. I couldn't. There was the me inside prison, right? And then there was like the me that was outside, the one that I knew before I went, and it was like I was 2 entirely different people, and I had no idea where this person was anymore. And I wanted to get back to who that person was, but I didn't know how. I was always on guard. My heart was always beating a mile a minute. Anytime someone moved too fast, my fists would go up. Like, I was ready, you know. And after 3 years of that, I didn't see how. I completely understand why our recidivism rate is so high in Saskatchewan, because guys get out of prison and fail right away. They have no choice. Like, they have no choice, right? And it's there needs to be so much reform when it comes to corrections in this country, right? Like, it's just that people are dying at such crazy rates incarcerated in Canada and police cells, and it's never going to stop until something changes on that end, right?
Yeah.
So, getting back to PTSD, so I was on the outside, and I was a ticking time bomb, to be honest. Like, I was going to hurt somebody. Like, there was something wrong, and I was honest about it. I remember I had to talk to this counselor, and I was honest about it, and she offered to put me on these pills, and I absolutely refused to take them. I don't even remember what they were called. I just said no. And I started smoking fentanyl. And the day I got out, I think that was the first time I OD'd, like, seriously, in my life, because I'd used heroin off and on since I was a teenager, but I'd never injected, and I never had the money to use a lot, right? So I would just use here and there. I was more a junkie of convenience than of necessity. And I would go through periods of not using too, right? If I was incarcerated or something like that. But with fentanyl, there was no in between. Like, you're in all the way or you're not at all. And if you're in all the way, you're going to die.
So like, when you were talking to this counselor, was that while you were on the inside?
No, that was just on the outside. I took it upon myself, because no programs. Remember, I got out on my warrant expiry date. I never got out on parole. I didn't go to a halfway house. I didn't do anything. They just opened the gates, and I was back to the world. With not even a goodbye, nothing. And I took it upon myself to try and start talking to someone, because I knew I felt it in me. I knew that I was going to hurt someone or myself, and something needed to change, because I wasn't sleeping. I was having trouble eating. I was grinding pieces of my teeth out. I was biting my nails, and blood on my fingertips all the time. Like, something needed to change. So a friend of mine started to tell me about microdosing.
LSD,
yeah. And at first I was really against it, because I never liked taking it recreationally. It was too long of a trip. You're too fucked up. Like, I don't like it when I'm not in control, right? So I don't. Well, not like I was in control of heroin either, right? But still, like, LSD is a different.
I wasn't gonna say anything there. I was gonna let that one slide, but
LSD and heroin are 2 entirely different birds, right? Like, it's 2 different things. But when I started microdosing, I absolutely noticed the benefits right away, right? I also took advantage of some MDMA too, which really helped me too. Like, it's when I think of when I think of my sobriety, like me being clean, I just think of me not using opiates. As
Mhm.
long as I'm not using opiates, I'm clean, because that is what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with smoking pot. I don't have a problem with acid. I don't have a problem with drinking, and I never have, and I never
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
So
So what did
being
it, like, what brought you over the edge, like, and made you willing to consider an alternative way to live? You know, like, cause like
um
you got out of prison, and like the first day you're out of prison, you're back on the pipe, like, you know,
oh,
so
what idiots. Like I was
well,
clean for so long. I was clean for so long. I just couldn't
yeah,
handle it, you know.
yeah.
I would have fully benefited by taking advantage of like some program or something like that, where they just kind
Mhm.
of a piece at a time sort of thing, just kind of ease you in, and then one day you're in, right? And that's cool.
Mhm.
But um I continued to use, and then I met my now wife Dion, who you know,
Mhm.
and we started dating. And for the first like few months, because she had never been around anything that was me ever,
Mhm.
just two different walks of life, so I was able to kind of hide it on her. But she's not an idiot. She figured it out eventually. And she wasn't like, I'm gonna leave you if you don't get clean. It was, you're just gonna die if you don't get clean.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked in the mirror one day and realized that I'm going to hurt everyone who loves me and everyone who's cheering for me. And I have some talents that people would kill to have
Mhm.
naturally. Like, I just have them,
Mhm.
and it would just be an absolute shame to waste it. So I reached out and I got some help. Right, like I needed it.
Mhm.
I needed it.
Mhm.
And I met Doc Markinson here in Saskatoon, and he
Yeah.
prescribed me suboxone. And as soon as I took my first dose, it was like a light switch went off in my brain. And I never thought about opiates again. It's been almost 2 years now. I've never relapsed. I've never used. I've never, no, nothing, no, nothing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the number one reason why that's happening, that differs me from the average person, is my supports, like my wife, my mother, my friends, my band. Like
Mhm.
I'm surrounded, you, Donna, like I'm surrounded by people that care about me and that want me to succeed. And a lot of people wish they had that and don't.
Mhm.
And that should be available to anyone. That should be available to anyone.
So, did you start microdosing before you went on Suboxone, or was that a choice you made after?
No, it was like I'd done it to try it, like a few doses here and there before Suboxone, but I really took it seriously once I was on Suboxone, and the two don't interact with each other whatsoever,
Mhm.
whatsoever. No,
Mhm. Did
because
you?
like a microdose, when you think LSD, you think you're bugged out and seeing crazy stuff, and that's not it at all. You don't get high at all, not
Uh-huh.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just helps you use parts of your brain that you normally use when you're high, like all those cool thoughts that you think make so much perfect sense. Like, just the fact that your brain's doing that is a good thing. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
what you're thinking is making sense. Just the fact that you're using that part of your brain is a good thing, and that's what it does. Because
Yeah.
trauma is not cured, but like we learn more about trauma through the wiring of the brain and
Mhm.
rewiring of the brain, right? Like,
Mhm.
traumatic events shape so many people in their lives. And at the root of all addiction, I think, is kind of like traumatic events for some people in one shape, form, or another, right? Like, whether
Mhm.
it's all the way back suppressed or it was yesterday, it doesn't matter. It's still trauma.
Mhm.
And if we can figure out how to start treating the trauma better, we can start treating the addiction better. Because until then, it's just going to be a cycle of death and people wanting to get help that can't, because the waiting lists are so long, right? Like here in Saskatoon, so like some places you got to keep calling them just to stay on the list for a bed, even though the
Yeah.
beds are booked for months and months and months
Yeah.
and months. And if
Don't
you
get me
miss one
started.
day,
Yeah.
back to the bottom of the list you go. And
Don't
how,
even,
how
like, it's.
they should do a study. I wonder how many people have died from being
Oh
put to the
yeah.
bottom of the list.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
bet a lot. I bet a lot.
a
Yeah.
lot, a lot. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because we are a city of like what, 280, 300,000 people, and we have the drug problem of a city of 5 million people. Like, it's just insane how much drugs
Mhm.
there are here and
Mhm.
how little help there is if you are being serious and want to do it. Like there's a lot of people who are trying to joke the system. Like I get it, everybody's a scammer, everybody's a gangster. I get it, but some people legitimately want to get help and legitimately want to change their life and legitimately want to find another way. And they should have that option available to them 24/7, 365 days a year. There's always someone available to help them if they choose to want it, period. There should always be money for that, because we're having a crisis here in Canada. Like people are dropping like flies. This Gucci dope that's on the street that's mixed with benzo. Like, why would you want to kill your customers? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
And naloxone does nothing anymore. It's outdated. It's obsolete. They got to come up with something stronger that works through that benzo layer, because until then, it's just going to be. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say that it's useless. I mean, it's still.
It still does. But when the dope is mixed with benzo, which we're seeing more and more of, it is useless against that. But when it's just fentanyl, no, it's absolutely useful. Yeah. But we're seeing more of that Gucci stuff around in the streets now, and the police just put out a warning the other day in Saskatoon about some yellow something. Like it's like meth, but it's half fentanyl, and meth heads are ODing because they're not used to the fentanyl, right? So it's I don't know why somebody would put that in the drugs. Like you're just killing your customers. Makes no sense.
So you've been a musician for a long time. What part did your music play in bringing you through the darkest times? Because I mean, you were a musician then too. In fact, some of the best music that you've written, I would argue, you have admitted to me that you wrote while you were high. And I was like, absolutely. I don't care. I'm still playing it.
High as a kite. Absolutely. Definitely. Guitar to me was how my soul spoke. Like it said, like my mouth said the bullshit, but my soul said the truth, right? So like it was how my soul spoke. You could listen, like if you knew me decently amount, you could listen to me play an acoustic guitar and you could tell what kind of mood I was in by the way I was playing. And music is like a universal kind of language with people, right? Like it brings people together. It evokes so many emotions in people. Like you can listen to a song without lyrics. Like just someone humming like an opera, and it can make you cry. I remember once I was 19, actually high on heroin in Vancouver, and it was in the wintertime, and I ducked into a church. Like it was freezing out, so I ducked in this church to warm up, and there was a choir practicing. So I ended up sitting down. There's a bunch of people sitting in there, like homeless people warming up and stuff. We sat down, they started singing, and about 2 minutes into it, I had my hands on my lap, and I felt something dripping on my hands. So I'm touching my nose, thinking like my nose is running. I was crying, and I didn't even know it. It was just beautiful. It was like a 14 or 15-year-old girl who was singing in this like operatic kind of. It was heart wrenching.
Yeah, I've said that a time or two before when I have conversations with my really musically talented friends. It's as though they can speak two languages, right? Like they can speak their languages with their lyrics, but they're also speaking another completely different language with their instrument.
Oh yeah, totally. Like your instrument, after you play, I think for a certain amount of time, your instrument becomes like a part of you almost. Like you. God, I think I spend on average about 3-4 hours a day playing guitar. I'm constantly writing music with my band. Actually, speaking of the devil, it's my guitarist Blaine's birthday today. So happy birthday,
Blaine! Yeah,
man. Yeah, he's 31, big guy.
Yeah, I saw him at the skate park this summer. And he was he was like, Dan, how's it going? And I'm like, I don't know, who are you? He's like, Truth and Agony. And like, oh yeah, I didn't recognize you without your guitar.
He's such a good skateboarder, eh? It's like one of his hidden talents. Like you don't think about it to look at him. He's all tattooed up, big muscular guy, but he's pretty good on a board, man. He does stuff on a board that I wouldn't even think of attempting. It hurts my knees just to think about it. But I'm extremely blessed that I have a band with 3 other guys in it that just totally get where I'm coming from, and are super supportive about what I want to do with like the music and recovery and stuff like that, because it's a big part of it, right? Like we the first actual national syndicated show to ever play our music is right here with you. Claim to fame, buddy. The first guys give us a shot, and now we're being played on CFCR, and it's funny because I remember when your show was first starting, my band was first kind of starting, right? Like we were
I remember
together. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, no, I remember. So let's talk a little bit about that. When you first came into recovery, you formed a band, or you had already formed the band before you came into
Like
recovery?
it was conceptually formed, but like I started getting reaching out to guys once I was getting clean. Like I was already on suboxone, but I hadn't been on it for long, only a few months, I think 4 or 5 at the time. I took it slow, like my wife, bless her heart, helped me through a lot of it, right? Like
Hmm.
I think all our wives and husbands and mothers, fathers all deserve medals, like for the loved ones of addicts. They
Hmm.
deserve their own category on top of it.
I agree.
Um, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Like I got to live with it, man. I put her through shit. Like I can't lie.
Hmm.
I'm definitely not the hero in that story, and I never will be.
Hmm.
But I make it up to her by living every day since then good. And
Hmm.
I don't lie to her. I don't cheat on her. I don't hit her. I don't do anything like that. I try and make every day better than the one before, and
Hmm.
and and it's worked out good. Uh, so many of my friends have died from fentanyl.
Yeah. Do you ever catch any flack at shows? Because I know you're quite open about it at like when you're playing live performances and stuff. I mean, I've sat in on at least one or two, and you're always you talk about it. I
Yeah.
don't know if you always do because I'm not at everyone. But do you ever catch any flack from like the audience or maybe from like band members or from anyone
No,
that
no, not really. Like part of my healing is to talk about it. Like I have to. I have to.
Mhm.
And a lot of people want to know, like they'll have questions in their mind that they won't want to ask. But then they can go into like your channel and look through all the interviews and find one and watch it, and they can get it answered without having to ask it. And they can
Mhm.
have it from someone who isn't reading it from a book or hoping so or guessing so. Like I've been there, man. I know what's up.
Mhm.
And it more, like I said in the beginning, more and more people are starting to reach out for help, and people are finding a voice, and it gives other people hope.
Mhm.
Like it gives people hope. Like you can't just sit there and struggle in silence when it comes to fentanyl, because
Mhm.
it's just going to end up taking your life or the lives of other people that you care about. there,
Right.
there there is no happy ending in it, and there has to be a way out of it, because people are wise enough to what's going on when it comes to fentanyl, and just how deadly and how dangerous this substance is.
Yeah.
And we need it out of our communities, like period. It shouldn't even be an option anymore, but it's always
Yeah.
going to be here. We're never going to get
Or
rid of it.
it would
Let's
be
make it safe.
there we go. There you go. You
Yeah,
you read
let's
you read
make
my
it
mind.
safe. Yeah, yeah.
Safer. I mean, can it ever really be safe? But I think that there is something to be said to having a regulated supply
Safe
available
supply.
to
Yeah.
those who choose to live a safer way. We're not going to fix everyone. We're not going to cure
No,
everyone.
no,
There's
no, no,
always going to be people out there that want to use the street supply, and there are people that are going to want to do bad things, and that sucks. But it's
yeah.
harm reduction,
Sucks, man.
right? It's not harm elimination. So,
No, it's not. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
And well, harm reduction. Even if you're reducing the harm, you are still making a difference. You're doing
absolutely,
something, right? It doesn't
absolutely,
matter if it's just a quarter of a percent. Well, it's a quarter of a percent better than it was, right? So
yeah, yeah,
that is a plus. It's always a good thing.
yeah.
And more people are getting involved, right? Like
Hmm.
Mom Stop the Harm does a lot of stuff here in Saskatoon and nationwide. You do a show every week. Donna does a show every week. Like
Hmm.
the word is out there. Like if people want to find help, they're able to find it. And whereas, like, remember, maybe even 15, 20 years ago, there was still so much stigma, and there still really is a lot of stigma
Yeah,
attached to being an addict, right?
so
But it
much,
is
so
becoming it
much.
is becoming a lot more common, and a lot more is known about it than there was before. Before, it was just like this kind of insular world where if you're not an addict, you don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
Whereas now, like, there needs to be more humanity in it. You know what I mean? Like it's not a bad thing that someone got addicted. It's okay, you got addicted. Let's figure out a way to get you help, and
Right,
to
right.
find something else, right?
Yeah,
People always are always going to need somewhere to turn if something in their life goes wrong.
yeah,
And they should always have that option should always be available to people, and it doesn't matter why you got addicted or how often
yeah.
let's
Yeah,
just
no, I
figure out a
agree.
way to get past it.
There's so much out there, or so many the narrative out there in some groups is still, it was their choice, so they have to deal with it. Well, that might be partially true. Maybe that first time was a choice, you know?
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that here we are now, and it's all of society dealing with it. You know, the harms that are being brought to the community when someone is lost in their psychosis. It's terrible. Yeah, they may have made that choice at the beginning, but now it's a serious problem, and we as a society need to deal with it, or it's not going to go.
Yeah. So how does guilting and shaming and incarcerating people solve anything? Like, how does that? What does that do? Yeah. Like, it does absolutely nothing. Yeah. And there needs to be a more realistic approach to it, right? And like, there's models out there that we could follow, like, for example, in Scandinavia with their heroin program, right? For example, you know, like, it just something a suggestion. And suboxone needs to be, like, when it comes to opioid recovery, like opioid maintenance, suboxone should be where treatment starts. Like, that should be the start right there, man. Because there's so much
or methadone, or whatever, or methadone,
you know, because there's so much evidence that it works, right? Like, there's so much evidence that people have success with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those people where, you know, when I was first getting clean, I was just like, okay, well, it's only a matter of time. I'm going to fuck this up. And the more I learned about it, the further I got away from it. And, like, I completely detached myself from the whole scene. I couldn't tell you who's where or what's going on. All I know is almost everyone's dead. And I found a new life with my band, and, like, I work full time. You know, I'm a grandfather. I got my son here with my wife. I live a pretty mellow life, and I couldn't be happier. I absolutely couldn't be happier.
Got a comment coming in from Robin. Robin, thank you for the comment. Robin says, yes, yet doctors are pushing fentanyl for pain. Too many dealing with addiction because of prescriptions. We need to talk more. Somehow we need to help each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially in Canada. When was that, Dan? Like 2012, 2011, when OxyContin, like the real, not the shady 80s, the real ones, the 80 OC, like, what was that? 2010, 20?
Oh, I don't know. That was before my time. I mean, I didn't get into oxys until they weren't oxys anymore.
I remember if you went to your doctor and said you had hurt feelings, they'd give you OxyContin. You know what I mean? Like, they were getting bonuses to prescribe it to everyone. So they had pill mills everywhere, right? So
and touting that it wasn't as addictive.
No, yeah, they had scientific research that said it wasn't addictive at all, even though people got horribly wired to it. And so they one day the doctors realized that all their patients were junkies, and they figured the best thing to do was cut them off. So the Mexican cartel moved in with the heroin. Mm-hmm. And it turned ugly. And then we started seeing fentanyl here in 2012, 2013. I think it started coming in from the darknet in China, and now it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in every facet of society. It is in every walk of life. Addiction in no way discriminates whatsoever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care who you are. If it wants you, it'll find you. And before you know it, like, it happens that fast, right? Like, I remember when I first started using heroin, it was all fun and games until it wasn't. And it's kind of amazing how quickly that kind of changed.
Yeah. Oh, the first couple of times were amazing.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely great. Yeah, I had a great time. You know, where you're nodding out to as fun as that could be. So it was pretty good. But I remember how quickly, like, everything just kind of changed and got dark, and it was no longer fun anymore. And, like, you know, you're running out of money, and you're starting to think who you can rob and steal from, or, you know, smash a car window, whatever you got to do, man, because you got 6 hours left till you're sick, and you got to get that money somehow, right? Yeah. So
been there.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a super hot gal dealer who will let you hump your way to free dope. It doesn't work that way, bud. Yeah.
So let's talk about your family for a minute, if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah.
What about mom and dad through all this?
My mom and dad got they split up in 2010, but my pop was a cop here in Saskatoon. No, seriously, he was. And my mom was a teacher. Like, I put my mom through the grinder, like, real hard. But now when I talk to her, and, like, we chat about our lives and work and stuff, and I say goodnight or goodbye to her. She doesn't say goodnight or goodbye to me. Like, she's never going to talk to me again. Like, she knows I'm going to be okay. I'll be there in the morning. Like, I got work in the morning, so I'm not out partying all night or whatever. She knows. And my dad, who him and I were sort of estranged for most of my adult life because I was a criminal and he was a cop. But now that he's retired in 2010, we were father son, and we maintain a good relationship. He's really proud of me. Like all these episodes that I do and podcasts and stuff, I always send it to him, and he's a pretty happy guy. You know, it was his birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday, Pops!
Happy birthday, Pops! Yeah.
Yeah. So, how long did it take? You know, when you decided to go on suboxone, how long did it take to develop a relationship with your parents again? Because I'm sure they weren't just like, "Oh, you're on suboxone? Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
Come on home."
Yeah, no, it took a minute. It took a minute. Like I want to say after like my mom, like I said, my mom's always been supportive, but like I think after 6 months, I kind of really started to notice the change because like I'd made it 6 months. Like I at first I didn't think I would do it. And then when I hit a year, it was like, wow. And now here I am in almost 2 years, right? So I don't think the way I used to, you know, like I'm not so doom and gloom and guilt tripping everyone so I could get money to get, you know, I was an addict, right? Like all I cared about was the dope. I didn't have a relationship with anyone but the chemical. You can't have a relationship with people and the chemical at the same time. You have one or the other, right? So I have my family back, you know, I'm my parents' son again, and I'm not someone that they don't know in the mirror. And it's really nice to be doing something with my life that my parents are incredibly proud of. Like my mom comes to Truth and Agony shows, and she's
I know, I saw her. I saw her when the last time I was there.
7-year-old woman just rocking front of the stage. Go, mom!
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, she was at our Canada Day one too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's amazing. That must feel good. Hey, do you ever get nervous? You ever get nervous because mom's in the crowd? Like more nervous?
You know what? The first one at Doghouse when she came, totally. I was knees were shaking, but now, I said, this will be like our 13th, 14th, 15th show. It's old news now, man. Yeah, we're good to go.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that. So do you continue to microdose? I
do. Yep.
Like how often? What does that look like for you? Like how often? Like tell us a bit about that.
So what I do is I volumetric dose. So I have it's like a vial with an eyedropper in it, and you fill it with actually I use vodka, 2 milliliters of vodka, and you put a street hit of LSD into it, like a little tab, and you put it in there and shake it up, and now it's all soaked out of the hit. And is now in the liquid. So now you take the eyedropper and you can take a drop. So instead of cutting off a little corner of a hit, you are taking a metric dose, right? Mm-hmm. Each drop would be about 4 micrograms. So I take 2 drops. So that's 8 micrograms.
Huh. And that's
definitely not enough to feel anything. Definitely no high, no trip, no nothing like that.
See, that's in my opinion, and that's just coming from where I come from and what I think I know. That just like I don't think I'd be able to do that. I don't think I'd be able to just like have oh, good. Thank God. I was thinking to myself like, oh no, he doesn't have a light on and the sun's going down.
Yeah, I got her.
Yeah. Okay. So like for me, like
some people look at recovery as like, you have to be abstinent and you can't touch any mind altering substance ever, or you're going to automatically go back to your drug of choice and be a junkie and die. And that's more like kind of like a group thinking sort of thing, which doesn't work for everyone. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. You have to know your limits. You know what I mean? Like you have to know, like myself, I couldn't take heroin just once for fun. Like I know for a fact that I cannot be around it.
Yeah.
But if someone put a plate of cocaine in front of me, I can't stand the shit. I never liked it. I've never liked it. I would have no problem being around it whatsoever. I smoke pot every day. Like I microdose. I've taken macro doses of MDMA in a therapeutic setting. Like not like.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that.
MDMA therapy. Oh, MDMA is incredible. I personally believe it's going to be legalized in this country for psychotherapy, just because it shows so much promise with soldiers returning from war.
And there's organizations and companies that are pushing for it. Like they're filling out all the forms and they're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Like it's coming.
You know who doesn't want it? You know who doesn't want it? The people
Oh,
who
tell
are going
me.
to lose hundreds of billions of dollars a year because nobody needs these bullshit pills they're pushing anymore because
Yeah.
MDMA is curing it in 1 or 2 doses.
Yeah.
Like, the one thing about recovery that I don't understand is when someone says, "Oh, I've been in recovery for 30 years." Well, when do you recover? Like, when are you better? When
Yeah.
can you walk on your own? And when are you going to be okay? And when are you going to be fine? Or are you gonna be hindered and in recovery forever? Right? Like, that kind of thinking is something that I just don't subscribe to.
Yeah.
Um, I also don't subscribe with thinking that I'm weak and powerless against my addiction and can do nothing to change it, because God and Jesus didn't get me clean. I got me clean. I went to the doctor and told him what happened and told him the truth. And I told my wife the truth and I told everyone the truth. And now I play in a band that's all about the truth and it's called Truth and Agony. And I did, long story short, I did this all on my own with the proper supports in place, but nobody walked this walk for me. I had to do it myself, and I had to go and ask the questions and get the answers and put in the work. It's a constant thing. But I've never ever been tempted to use. I've never been tempted to, oh well, hey, my wife's at work for the day and I don't have work. Maybe I can just quickly get high. No one will know. I'm on suboxone, so if I was to take fentanyl right now, I would instantly go into precipitated withdrawals, which makes withdrawals look like hopscotch. Precipitated withdrawals is probably the closest thing to hell on earth a human being can go through. It's absolute misery, absolute misery. And you never know when it ends. It could go on for a week. It could go on for an hour. It could go on for a month. You don't know when it ends.
Yeah. That's
like
crazy.
It could end. You're fine for 2 days and then it starts again. And then you're fine for like a week and then it starts again. Like it just, it's horrible. Horrible.
Huh. So do you tell your prescribing doctor, is it still Dr. Markington?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So are you honest with him about your microdosing practices and stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Here in Saskatoon, I also don't agree with this, but every time I go to my suboxone doctor, I have to take a piss test.
Yeah.
I think it's a waste of money and a waste of time. Like, once you've done it a certain amount of times, it's pretty obvious that you're not going to fucking start using dope. But anyway, I was honest because he piss tested me, right? So it would make no sense to lie about it. But I also told him that I'm not using it recreationally and going and tripping out in a park somewhere. Like, I use my dose therapeutically. I found what worked for me after experimentation on myself, right? I highly don't recommend it for someone to go score some acid in the street, cut a piece off and try it yourself. Like, I'm not saying that at all.
We got a disclaimer for that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely not. I'm not a doctor. I offer no medical advice whatsoever. But it should be looked at, and the reason that it hasn't been studied in a long time was because it was illegal. It was the prohibition of it that kept it from being studied. Yeah. And now that we have fentanyl and crystal methamphetamine in such huge amounts, people wanting to microdose acid mushrooms doesn't really seem like a big deal. So we're able to research it more. And what we're finding out from our research in the world is that these substances, even though they've been illegal for the last 75 years, are incredibly effective tools when it comes to like treating trauma and stuff like that. Yeah, and psychotherapy. Yeah, it's really cool. Some of these documentaries out there about it, like, I think there's a few on Netflix right now that are super interesting to watch. It's really cool to see. And hopefully Canada moves in the direction of maybe seeing what's down that road, because it's showing to work for people. Yeah, and it certainly has worked for me. Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I don't know. I think that about caps it off. That like flew past, didn't it?
Yeah, my man. It always does.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we should go have lunch here. Me, Dion, you, and Donna one of these days here.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
My man.
Is there anything that you would like to leave us with tonight?
Yeah. You can follow my band, Truth and Agony, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think I'm forgetting something. No, we'll leave that for now. We got some upcoming shows here on August 20th, August 31st, September 9th at Doyle Fest, Eagle Creek Park. You can follow us on Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Apple Music, all the major major streamers. I want to thank Dan and Donna and Hard Knocks Talks for having me around. And happy birthday to my dad. Happy birthday to Blaine. And Truth and Agony. I'll see you boys at practice.
All right. Take it easy, my
All right,
friend.
Dan. Yeah. Have a good night, brother.
All right. Well, that's it for me, too. Check us out live and interactive every Sunday night. Goodbye.